And welcome aboard, everybody, here to the Sports Talk Nation. Michael Cohen here with you. We got a great show for you today. For all you Yankee fans out there, you've been waiting for this for a while. Yes, we are going to talk about the New York Yankees, who are in first place in the AL East. It's been a crazy season for the Bronx Bombers with all the injuries that they have had to endure this year, and still they find a way to win 9 straight series. They find themselves, as I said, in first place in the East. And now they're getting some good news. To talk about this and more, very special guest to the program is none other Doug Rush. Doug, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on today.
All right, man. So, Doug, let's go right into this. The big news, we had breaking stories last night. We had a breaking story today. The breaking story today, of course, Didi Gregorius off the disabled list, or injured list as they now call it. And he will be back in the lineup today. This is huge right now for the Yankees to have him back in the lineup.
I mean, if you think about April and all the players that, if you look at the opening day lineup and all the players they've lost, they got Gary Sanchez back eventually. They're still without Aaron Judge and still without Giancarlo Stanton. They're still without Dylan DePantis and Luis Severino. Jacoby Ellsbury, I feel like, lives on the disabled list. Oh, sorry, injured list. That's going to take a while for me to get used to saying that. But, getting Didi back. Didi wasn't projected to come back until at least July or August with the Tommy John surgery, and yet here it is, not even mid-June yet, and he's set to return tonight. To me, Didi Gregorius was probably the third most important player that the Yankees had lost, given his bat, his glove. When he's healthy, he's a 30-100 contributor, and his defense is Gold Glove. So getting that bat back, it provides a good problem for the Yankees, considering they had Gleyber Torres playing shortstop for most of the season. This is a good addition. It's how they say, making a trade without a trade and getting one of your key guys back. It's getting like a perennial all-star back into your lineup, and at the right time, considering you're getting into the summer, you're getting into, the time where, players start to get maybe tired, get the heat hitting them. The Yankees not only have survived the first part of the season, they've thrived, and now you're getting one of the key players back that you've been without since the start of the season, and it's a key one. So this should be a welcomed and major addition and boost to a Yankee lineup that, can only need more firepower as they go on to try and, clinch the division and try to make a run for another championship.
Oh, absolutely. And not only from the power standpoint, because you all know the power that DD can bring to the table. He's a 20 home run guy. Guy can drive in 80 to 90 runs in during a full season, but just from the clubhouse standpoint, you talk about a guy who has, everyone talks about the infectious smile that he has and how he rubs off well on the players. Having him back in the clubhouse is going to be huge. A veteran presence like that. There's still a lot of veteran guys there, like obviously like Sanchez, LeMahieu in a lot of ways, although he's new to the ball club this year. But there's also a lot of young guys in the clubhouse right now. Have that veteran presence there is going to be huge right now as they start to move deep into the summer. And this gives Aaron Boone now an opportunity to move things around. And I started hearing this the other day saying, what are they going to do with Urshela at third? What are they going to do with Torres, who has been filling in at shortstop? And then LeMahieu. I would think that considering the way LeMahieu has been hitting lately, the guy's on a 11-game hitting streak. I would imagine they're going to keep him in the lineup as much as they possibly can. Maybe they put Torres on the bench. Well, that's tough to do as well for a guy who's hitting 279. It's a good problem to have if you are Aaron Boone right now with all these good pieces.
When they signed DJ LeMahieu, who I feel like was probably one of the more underrated signings of the free agent season, considering everybody was so focused on Bryce Harper and was so focused on Manny Machado, and yet DJ LeMahieu has been nothing short of phenomenal for the Yankees. given the fact that he hits everything. And he, not only hitting everything, he's become their leadoff hitter for like the last month or so because he gets on base, he sees the ball well. DJ LeMahieu, I mean, granted he came up as an all-star second baseman in Colorado. There's nowhere he can't play. He can play first. He can basically play the whole infield, and then also, if he needed, can play the outfield too. So LeMahieu has become, while he's been, second, third, whatever, he's kind of been that super utility infielder that he's likely not coming out of the lineup because he's played so well. I mean, last night Torres, I know like he was with the sore shoulder, whatnot, so he sat. So I mean, if they need to put him back at shortstop, and all the likely Didi's going back to his spot at shortstop. So you can put Torres back at second. You can flip guys around. Maybe give you can put LeMahieu at first and Voit as a DH, or flip that around. Having somebody like DJ LeMahieu in the lineup gives Aaron Boone so many options to flip guys, give guys a rest. Maybe you give Gio Urshela a breather at third. I mean, having guys who not only fit in the lineup but hit and continue to give options. And it's a good thing and a good problem for Aaron Boone to have, because it's almost like you can plug in place, and if a guy needs a breather, or if a guy's if with Torres with the shoulder, you can afford to sit him for a game or two, while you have somebody like Didi Gregorius coming back who's going to be 100% ready to go and probably anxious to get in there and help a Yankee lineup that's played well, and you could only think that he's going to only add to the success.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you speaking of LeMahieu, I think back to the offseason, and everyone was wondering, what are the Yankees going to do? Are they going to go out there and they're going to get Manny Machado? And obviously they didn't do that. Well, I even remember speaking to fans online, and a lot of them were upset, saying, we really wanted Manny Machado. I know you've seen some of those same kind of fans as well. And a lot of people didn't know who DJ LeMahieu was. Being in Colorado, the player like this kind of gets hidden. But he's always been a very solid player, a very solid hitter. And now here in New York, I mean, people get to see it now every single night. This guy just finds ways to get on base. He's kind of an old school player in a league where everyone's hitting home runs. This guy just finds ways to get hits in any which way he can.
I mean, you being a Mets fan,
yeah.
I mean, you want to make a comparison, Jeff McNeil.
Yes.
I mean, I feel like, they're not gonna hit home run contact. They're gonna hit the ball hard. They're gonna hit the ball in certain places. And like I said, DJ LeMahieu played so well that he went from being in the bottom of the order right into the leadoff spot. And I know in your case, I think McNeil's been like first or second in the lineup for a while. So, yeah. I mean, those are the kind of hitters you need. You need guys who are gonna, make contact hard, find gaps, and that's what LeMahieu. And sometimes, LeMahieu can put the ball in the fence, but at the same time, part of the success for the Yankees, while they've been hitting homers in so many bunches, I mean, you look at some of the batting averages; they're high, and LeMahieu is one of them who's been over 315, 320. That's been a big reason for the Yankees' success, is because they're hitting the ball for contact, they're hitting for average, and they're hitting home runs. But when you don't hit home runs, you still need to put the ball in place. And I feel like this team is a little bit different than last year. Because you saw last year, a lot of guys, hitting like 250, 260, 270. Now you guys hitting over 300. That's when the Yankees were winning championships. That's what was the success. They weren't just hitting home runs; they were hitting for high average, hitting in situational spots, and that's what the Yankees have been doing so well all year. And that's why they've been able to, weather the storm of losing so many players, is because all the guys that have come in and replaced the superstars. They've all hit in key situations, and that's why they were able to beat Red Sox 4 out of 5, and beat Tampa Bay, and beat everybody else, and win 9 straight series, because they're hitting well in key situations, and that's why they're in first place.
That's exactly why. I mean, it's really just an old school approach. I mean, even you have kids like Urshela coming up here, hitting over 300. They bring in a guy like Cameron Maybin off the scrap heap, and he produced. He's hitting at 282 so far this year. I mean, it doesn't seem to matter who they plug in. Someone is going up there and producing, hitting around 300, and driving guys in and moving base runners, and that's really all that matters right now for this team until they get the two big guys back.
Granted, you can't say that the Yankees aren't going to be better without Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton, because you're talking about two guys who, yeah. So the Yankees, they're not going to be, not better without Judge and Stanton. And you're talking about two guys who one was an MVP, one was almost an MVP. And you got to think that once they come back, especially, I feel like Judge is one of the guys that makes that team go. And he was one of the few last year against Boston when most of the team struggled against that team in the playoffs. He was hitting 400. So you feel like you at least get him back. You feel like that team's going to get even stronger. And I feel like, and that's the thing, I feel like they haven't had a need to rush either one of them back with their injuries, because they've been able to weather the success and been able to be in first place and beat the Red Sox and beat the Rays. Granted, they want them back as soon as possible, but at the same time, because they've had so much success, they haven't been like, oh, we need to get you back as soon as possible. No, we need to get you back as soon as you're 100% healthy. I feel like that's been a big plus for the Yankees, is not needing to rush both those big bats back so that they can get them back at the right time for a playoff run. And for their case, maybe deep into an October run.
Yeah. Folks, again, we're talking with Doug Rush of Giants Wire. Of course, Doug, a huge Yankee fan as well, and writes about them. You mentioned Aaron Judge, and he's begun hitting a little bit. But you mentioned that there's really no rush to get these guys back. Even Judge himself said, look, I'm not going to race back to get onto the field until I'm 100%. The guys are playing well, and as soon as I'm ready to go, I'll be there. So, this is a guy that, with oblique injuries, you really never know with these kind of injuries. I mean, sometimes they could be a couple of months, sometimes they could be 3 or 4 months. But I think the hope is that if you're the Yankees, you get Aaron Judge back in July. And as you mentioned earlier, it's kind of like making a trade without making a trade. You get that kind of player back in the middle of this lineup towards the post All-Star break, towards the stretch run. That is exactly what you want if you were the Yankees heading towards the playoffs.
Ultimately, you saw them try to negotiate, get a pitcher. So obviously, your big focus when you get to July is getting a pitcher back. And granted, they've been without Luis Severino for the entire season, so obviously they want to get him back. But at the same time, you don't know how strong he's going to be. Missing most of the season. CC Sabathia, as good as he's been, you don't know how he's going to hold up, the rest of the way. And, Domingo Germán's on an innings limit. So, hence the reason why they were so, hell-bent on trying to get Dallas Keuchel to a certain extent. They're going to get most of the position players back, minus Jacoby Ellsbury, who I think has never seen the field again. So, you get those back, you focus on trying to make a trade for a pitcher. There'll be several out there on the deadline next month. And then you just kind of, but at the same time, there's really been no tremendous weakness on this team. The starters have pitched well. The bullpen has been phenomenal, with exception of this past series against Toronto, just a rare series. And the lineup is hitting well. So, you're in first place. It's the only real need you have is to get another starter, because you can't have enough good starters once you get into October. And once you get into the playoffs, you're going to face all the good lineups and whatnot. So yeah, you need to load up on pitching, because obviously the good pitching is going to get you, that one step closer to a championship.
Absolutely. You really don't want to burn out your bullpen too much. We saw the bullpen have issues the other day in Toronto, the game with that wild game where Vlad Guerrero Jr. had the 3-run home run. So, long term, you don't want to burn those guys out. After this Dallas Keuchel situation with him going to Atlanta, I sit there and wonder, who are they going to go out there and target? And a lot of people talk about Madison Bumgarner with San Francisco. Some people have talked about Max Scherzer. I've heard his name get floated out there. Maybe Marcus Stroman in Toronto. Bumgarner obviously is the big name there. But if you're going to do that, you're going to have to give up a lot to get him to San Francisco, because of what he means to that franchise. I don't know if that's going to be something that Brian Cashman's going to want to do. Unload a lot of top prospects, especially guys who may have contributed to this team this year and even last year, to do that. Stroman might be a little more of a safe bet in my mind, because he's pitched in the division, and he's really a guy who will eat innings. So I don't know how you feel about that, but I think a Bumgarner could be tougher than some people may think.
Yeah. So I've always had my eyes on Madison Bumgarner.
Yeah.
The price is high, but I think I think he wouldn't cost as much as Max Scherzer, only because Scherzer has another year or two still on his contract, as opposed to Bumgarner's a free agent after this year. So, I mean, the price might not be as high as if Bumgarner back in years past, when he had 2 or 3 years left on the contract, would cost a fortune. So Marcus Stroman, yeah, that's a very realistic cost, because, and maybe even more so because the Yankees and the Blue Jays dealt with each other last year when the Yankees got Jay Happ from them.
Yeah.
So it's not like the Yankees and the Blue Jays aren't, they're not strangers to each other. They've made deals with each other as soon as last year. So, and another name, I mean, I don't know if this is, WFAN talk or whatnot, but people were talking about Wheeler, especially if the Mets decide to sell. But then again, when do the Yankees and the Mets ever help each other make a trade?
Exactly.
So, I mean, I think Cashman knows that, this team is close. I think he sees that this team is a little bit better than last year. They're better right now than Boston. They're in first place. I guess when you look at it, they're not the number one team in the American League because they got, the Astros and the Twins ahead of them. I don't know. I feel like that one final arm would be what kind of puts them over. And I always compare, if they can get somebody like Bumgarner or if they can get Scherzer, to me, that's kind of like what happened with the Astros when they got Justin Verlander in 17. I feel like without Verlander, the Astros are not winning the World Series. They're not beating the Yankees in the ALCS. Justin Verlander was the reason why the Astros beat the Yankees in the ALCS. And Justin Verlander was a big reason why the Astros won the World Series 2 years ago. You get somebody like that who kind of, it'll basically rejuvenate his career. And now he got stronger. I mean, if you want to look at another option, even though he's not pitching well this year, I mean, if you want to, look at, Indians and maybe like Corey Kluber, he's not having a good year, but maybe if you get him, you don't trade as much for him because his ERA is in the 5. Maybe, going to the Yankees would rejuvenate his career, his season. And, but I mean, I don't see them as like a direct seller yet because they're in second place and behind the Twins. But granted, they're like 10 games back in the Twins. So, I mean, the 3 names that you're going to hear the most right now as far as like trade deadline, is Bumgarner, Scherzer, and Stroman. If there's going to something happen, generally it's not going to be for another month and probably going later towards July. So, I mean, I know they're going to want to see, they want to see if, when they get Severino back, if he's going to be strong, if he's going to be anything. But even with that, because of, CC, tires out, and with Germán's pitch count, they need another arm.
They do.
Just, you have to get another arm. Even with Tanaka, sometimes Tanaka has ups and downs, and James Paxton's been up and down too.
Jay Happ,
Jay Happ's had his struggles too. So even though he's pitched well in the last 2 starts, so I feel like they have to get another arm. I mean, Dallas Keuchel would have been nice, but at the same time, I feel like Keuchel actually was better suited for the National League anyway. So if I had my choice, it's 1A Bumgarner, 1B Scherzer, but it all depends on what those 2 teams are asking for.
I mean, you mentioned Dallas Keuchel. Here's a guy who hasn't pitched at all this year, and that was the thing that kind of worried me, because I really didn't know what we would get out of Dallas Keuchel if he came to New York, or even now he's going to Atlanta, what they're going to get out of him. We've seen Boris clients who have held out for long periods of time, sign a contract, and then when they actually take the field, they're not as good as advertised. And, Keuchel, we'll see what he can do. I mean, his ERA has gone up over the last couple of seasons, especially last year. This is really an audition for him. I think pitching in the National League East with all the problems that the Mets have, the Nationals and the Marlins have, I mean, he'll pitch well. I have no doubt about that. He'll keep Atlanta in the race with Philadelphia, who, for whatever reason, now they've lost Andrew McCutchen for the season. They can't seem to run away from in that division at all. So it's probably the best spot for him to be in. I just don't know how well he's going to pitch compared to what we saw last year, even 2 years ago. The one thing that makes Bumgarner very interesting is the fact that he's only 29, and I know the last couple of years have been rough for him, but he's only 29 years old. there's still a lot left in the tank. It feels like he's 36 because he's pitched in so many big games, but he's still a young guy. He's still got a lot of baseball ahead of him.
I mean, people think he's also older because he's been around for the Giants since going back to 2010 when the Giants won that first World Series against Texas. I mean, he's been around forever. He's a competitor. He's a warrior. He wants the ball in every big game possible. I mean, everybody still remembers when he took the ball in Game 7 against the Royals and he got the 5-inning save. I mean, he's not afraid of the big moment, and that's, I think, what would make him perfect for New York is he likes the big games. He likes the big situation. He's a fierce competitor. Like, he will get in faces of any batter possible. He's not afraid of anybody, and he's not afraid of any moment possible. So, I mean, that's the one thing that concerns me about Scherzer is for as great as Max Scherzer's been. If you look at his playoff numbers, especially with, I don't know if this is a Washington thing, but I mean, he's kind of had his struggles, especially in like big games, like against the Dodgers, against the Cubs. He's kind of had those games where he's given up 5 or 6 runs when he's supposed to be the lockdown ace.
Scherzer has had his issues this year as well. I mean, he's had some bad outings. He gave up 6 runs to the Marlins earlier this year. I mean, he has had a rough year. He's had bad outings against the Mets, the Marlins, even the Phillies. He's given up some runs, so he's not as automatic as he's been. You know, maybe age is finally starting to catch up to that arm. I mean, he's thrown a lot of innings, Max Scherzer, in his career. So I agree with you. I think if the Yankees find a way to get a Madison Bumgarner, it will be. You're going to see the entire American League start to shake a little bit because I'm like, oh no, here we go, because he can go in there and just dominate everybody once we get into the postseason. And I look at this American League, and really outside of Houston, it's just not a strong American League this year. I mean, it sounds weird to say that, considering the teams we've seen like Boston and Cleveland have been really, really good the last couple of years. What Oakland did a couple of years ago, getting into the playoffs, but Cleveland's had its issues this year. I don't know if I really want to buy Minnesota. I know they've had a lot of home runs this year, but I look at their pitching. I don't know if I want to buy them in a big spot. Tampa Bay's still very young. Red Sox still have a lot of issues that they're trying to work through this year. I mean, it seems like it's going to be Houston or the Yankees in the American League when it's all said and done.
I mean, if you look at the teams that are competing, I mean, Houston is probably you have to respect Houston because one, they've beaten the Yankees in the playoffs. Aside from that, I mean, Tampa's so young, so you don't really know what they can do if they get into a playoff atmosphere. If Boston gets pushed back further, they're not going to make it. I mean, that's really the reality of it. And yeah, like Minnesota, it's hard to buy on Minnesota because, again, they're a young team that's kind of got off to this. And I don't know if you want to look at history and whatnot, but every time the Twins, especially when it's the Twins and the Yankees, I mean, no matter how good the Twins have been in years past, it just seems like any time they get the Yankees in a playoff series, they just keel over and choke. Big time. I mean, you go back to the years where they had, Johan Santana
and Mauer and
Liriano and all these, the years that they thought they were finally had the big arms to beat the Yankees, and the Yankees would just roll right over them in like 3 or 4 games. So, I mean, it's hard to. I mean, granted, this is a great year for the Twins, and so far they look like they're going to run away with that division. But at the same time, because of the Twins' history in the playoffs, and especially over the last 15 years, it's hard to take the Twins as a serious contender because every time they get into playoff series, especially against the Yankees or really anybody else. I mean, I think the farthest that they've been to one, ALCS, and that was 2002 when they got beat by the Angels. Other than that, every time they're in the playoffs, they get beat bad. So, I mean, granted, right now they got to focus on, they'll focus on winning the division, but as far as being a contender goes,
we'll see.
I don't know. I think they'd have to add more in order for me to take them a little bit more seriously than what they are right now.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see with Minnesota. It's really about once they get to the postseason, maybe they'll be so young that they just don't even know about their own history, that they just find ways to win series, which we've seen teams do in the past before. So we'll see what happens there. In the interim, of course, the Yankees have the Cleveland Indians coming up this weekend, a big 3-game series out at the Jake in Cleveland, and Yankees coming off of a series loss in Toronto. Then, of course, on Monday, the Yankees get the New York Metropolitans into Yankee Stadium on Monday and Tuesday, and maybe the Yankees can not only knock out Mickey Callaway from his job. I don't know. Oh my goodness! I mean, Met fans just want Mickey Callaway out of the way so bad. It's incredible.
And I take it I take it you're one of those who wants Mickey Callaway fired.
Well, actually, Brody Van Wagenen too. Well, I think they should just clean house totally, but that's just me.
Well, if they're going to fire one, I mean, because Callaway's been there longer, and
yeah,
I feel like Callaway would probably get fired first before Brody. I mean, he hasn't even completed one season yet as a general manager. So, and I mean, and Brody inherited Mickey. So, I mean, obviously, if one's going to go, it's probably going to be, it would probably be Mickey Callaway first, and then I guess Jim Riggleman would take over as the interim, and whether or not Brody would get to pick his own manager, or they would just clean house completely and try to start all over again. But then again, you start all over, how much further back do you want to set the Mets? But then again,
is
it really surprised them considering how many general managers you've been through, how many managers you've been through?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got to get some consistency, but at the same time, when's that consistency coming? Especially after, what happened in 15 and 16.
Mm-hmm.
Now you were like at the doorstep, and now you're taking 3 steps back. So it's a rough situation.
It is. I sit there and I would like to see them just string series together. They've only won as many as 2 series in a row all season, and I just want to see them start to string more wins together. Now they have to get back over 500, just get to 500 and then get back over it, and see if they can get themselves in this wild card race. I just want to see more consistency out of them. But I think about them long term. Beyond Alonso and McNeil and Conforto, and obviously DeGrom and Syndergaard. I'll throw Edwin Diaz in there as well. I mean, I sit there beyond those guys. I say, where are the other pieces that are going to be there for long term? Who are those? Who is the Didi Gregorius of this team? Who is the Gio Urshela of this team? And the Mets just don't have those kind of players. They don't have those kind of players coming up through the system at all. I
mean, if you think about your injured guys,
yeah.
I mean, you have, Cespedes, who I don't know if he's ever going to see a Met uniform again. Jed Lowry, who, he's been hiding out in the, injured witness protection program with Jacoby Ellsbury.
Yep.
I mean, and Cespedes, oh my God, that made no sense to sign him so he never plays. I mean, the depth, and that's the unfortunate, the depth for the Yankees, they've had guys injured. The guys they've brought in have, and they haven't missed a beat. Whereas if the Mets lose, a player, it's then, not only they haven't seen him yet, but they haven't, been able to replace any kind of production. It's an unfortunate situation because, Brody Van Wagenen, made this declaration on the stand that, the Mets compete, the Mets are going to do well, and felt that, he was making trade, he made the trade for Cano and Diaz, thinking that, we're going to compete, we're going to win this year. We got, and, he gave DeGrom the extension, which I agreed with at the time.
Mm-hmm.
He felt like, we're going to win, and you're in third place at under 500. So,
yep.
It's not like you're the Marlins dead in last place, but considering all the talent you have, you figure the Mets would be. But at the same time, you're also without your best player, and sometimes you're without 2 of your best players when Cano's hurt. So there's only so much you can do, and I feel like in Queens, it's only a matter of time before the change gets made and Mickey gets shown the door. But
maybe
I don't know if Brody's afraid to make that move, but I don't know.
I think the Wilpons are telling him what to do, but I think they're waiting for something. I don't know for what. Maybe they're waiting for the team to be on the West Coast again so they can fire another manager at 3:00 in the morning. I have no idea. But seriously, I think they look at the team and they see all these guys underperforming, guys who aren't healthy, and they say, is this going to be any different? And, you're talking about paying off and buying out Callaway's contract for the next, not just the rest of this year, but all of next year. And then you're talking about trying to start over. Are you really going to find that diamond in the rough now? Answer is probably not. So you're almost better off just waiting. I think that's part of the thought process. They would rather just wait If the season ends up being like 81-81, well, then so be it.
The Mets got, like, they decided to go older. I mean, they added free agents, you know, they traded for Cano and Diaz, and they brought in Jed Lowry, and, you know, a couple years ago, you got Todd Frazier, and, you know, Wilfo Ramos, and all these veterans and whatnot. And I guess, you know, I don't know if you want to look at it, you know, baseball has become kind of a younger person's sport, whereas Brody Van Wagenen is not only bringing in veterans, but he's bringing a lot of his older clients. So I don't know if that was the best way to build a baseball team, but I don't know. It was hard for me to fathom seeing an agent who had no experience whatsoever on the executive baseball level trying to prove that not only he could run a baseball team efficiently, but also run a baseball team efficiently in one of the biggest media markets in the entire country. And so far, I mean, from what I gather from every Met fan and every Met analyst, it's been a vote of no confidence so far.
Folks, again, we're here talking with Doug Rush. Doug, this was awesome, man. Before you go, just tell people what you got writing up, what you're doing right now as far as sports writing.
So, like you said before, I'm with Giant Flyer, USA Today. So, you know, covering the Giants, which has been a whole nother adventure, especially with the quarterback situation. And, you know, it's kind of been a breath of fresh air not having to cover Odell Beckham Jr.'s every move and not move. So it's been a very, very quiet, yet kind of a breath of fresh air in a way. It's kind of a different, you know, a lot of changes and whatnot, but especially the quarterback situation. So, yeah, I've been covering, you know, Giants, you know, at Giants Flyer for USA Today, and you know, I still, you know, post my thoughts here and there on the Yankees because, you know, I was a beat writer for the Yankees for so long. So, yeah, that's pretty much what's been going on for me for, you know, the last year or so.
Awesome, man, awesome. So, folks, remember to like and subscribe right here to the Sports Talk Nation. You can get the latest lowdown on what's going on here in the New York, New Jersey sports market. And remember to follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/OpenMicProgram, as well as Twitter @OpenMicNJ. We'll talk to you next time, everybody. Right here on the Sports Talk Nation, your home for everything New York, New Jersey sports.